Hello and welcome to the TR6CC channel, coming to you from the Fallout Shelter to Garage. Today we're going to see if a TR6 can fly. Well, not really fly, but how it goes up on the lift. So I've already pre-positioned the posts underneath the frame rail, and without further ado, we'll give it a lift. Alright, I've lifted the Triumph actually a few times as I was changing its oil and everything else, but lift it up and we'll give it a shake, and you can see it's pretty darn solid and everything else. I'm going to open the hood just so that as it gets up, we'll have a little bit more light going through the engine compartment so that we can see what's going on down below. So on that note, let's continue cycling it up. We're going to stop here for just a second and just make sure that everything looks good under the frame rails and everything is still positioned well, and we'll continue up. I did put a couple of lines, just a piece of magnetic stripping here so that I know when I've reached the top of the limit on it and where the bottom of the lifting mechanism is once it's locked in place. So let's just take it up the rest of the way. We're just going to lower it down onto the locks. And there we go. Now the TR6 is up in the air. For reference points, I am 5'9". I think I started life as an adult at 5'10", and now I'm 5'9". I can walk underneath the Triumph all the way, and I do not have the lift with any extensions on it, so clearly I could have put, I think on the Triumph I might have been able to get some short extensions on here, or just turn these up a little bit, but for a person of my height, I can clearly walk through the car, no problem at all. What I cannot do, of course, is get underneath the arms themselves, so I do need to be cautious on that, but that's essentially what we're looking at. I'm going to try and keep today's video short, no more than maybe 5 minutes, but we'll see. I find that once I get talking, it seems it's awfully hard for me to stop. Imagine that. So anyway, on that note, I'm just getting a light so that we can shed a little bit more light on the underside. All right. So as I mentioned, I have done an engine swap. So you can see that the engine is still using the stock radiator, and I was able to just adapt this lower radiator hose is actually a unit from a later model Triumph TR6. Then you can see the belts and everything else kind of on this side. See the oil filter up there. It's a real tight fit. In fact, the oil filter will not fit in through the bottom, so I have a method though where I can actually, there's enough room for me to get my hand up through here and reach it around. We have the single exhaust that comes down. You can kind of see the U-channel that I welded to the top of the frame rails, and then sitting on top of that is essentially a rubber donut, which is actually motor mount out of an XKE, I think, but a Jaguar motor mount. So again, pretty tight. The block that you see there, that oil block, was purchased from a company who specializes in putting these engines into kit cars. It actually has a couple of different outputs. So I have the pressure gauge hooked up, so I have the pressure light, and then right above it, very hard to see, is actually a braided hose that goes up to the mechanical oil pressure gauge that was originally in the Triumph. You've got the Toyota gearbox, which appears to be leaking a little bit of oil. This is the bell housing that I was able to find that mated the two together. This is actually, you can see that I've had to relocate this mount, but this actual mount is actually one used from the Hydra kit, and I just ended up having to move it forward a little bit, which then put everything in the right position. I did put a stainless steel exhaust on this thing back in the day, and of course it's pretty dirty, needs to be cleaned up. But and then here is the Nissan diff, or Infinity, or whichever Nissan brand it came out of. You can see the Richard Good half shafts on both sides, which are pretty good installation. And then I've also got Good Parts adjustable trailing arms, so you can adjust the trailing arm, certain features of the trailing arms. I put in the Zerk fittings as I put in when I put in new bushings. So, you know, overall the suspension is pretty tight now. You know, got the adjustable shock absorbers, connections, and everything else. Up front suspension, everything was replaced up front, trunnions, and I've actually replaced the bearings, adjustable spacks, shocks up front, I think they're spacks, and new springs and the whole bit. In addition to that, it's got the Good Parts disc brake conversion, so you can see the Millwood rotor there. I'll actually take it down just a little bit, and actually I can't do that with two hands, but you know, we'll just make it quick here. But there is the Millwood caliper, and then of course I went with a slotted drilled rotor, rotor. So everything looks pretty good. The other thing that I've done is I replaced the steering rack. It's got a quick turn steering rack. I don't have any problems turning this thing manually, even with the slightly smaller steering wheel. So overall, you know, all of that worked out pretty good. You know, corrected the sway, you know, put new sway bar mounts in it and everything else. But overall, that is the underside of the TR6. So this week, or last couple of weeks, I've been doing some traveling for work, and in addition to that, this week was the annual oil change for all the cars. So so far I've got the JL, TJ, and the TR6. Oil's been changed in all of those cars, and then the Porsche's up next. Probably do that over this weekend. I'll do a quick film on that because I'm actually going to add a couple of additional things when I do that. I'm converting it to use a spin-on style filter. So, you know, essentially there's an adapter that you can get from, this one came from Ellen Engineering. They're the ones who make the bearings for the intermediate shafts, which I'm sure anybody who has any familiarity with the M96, M97s, the M96 engine I should say, is familiar with that. But you can see it's a pretty simple adapter. The Porsche has a canister style cover, kind of actually similar to what the Triumphs used to have. So this, you know, simply threads into where the canister would thread in, and then it's just fitted for a spin-on oil filter. Interesting part about this is that these come in two different varieties. This one is, like a 13/16 by, I can't remember the thread count, which is a little different than what you normally would see. I think it's 3/4 16. So it caused me to end up getting a couple of oil filters, but no big deal there. So anyway, thanks for your attention. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Please like, subscribe if you care to. Other than that, look forward to another video, probably coming through on Monday or Tuesday, that just shows the installation and oil change on the Porsche. One other thing to note about that oil change is that this is the first time that I'm actually going to send oil to be analyzed. So I got, you know, a analysis kit. you know, there's, oh gosh. First, I would say, if you're ever thinking about buying a 911, do a lot of research. You know, there's bore score, there's, you know, intermediate shaft bearings, there's water pump failures, there's oilers, separators. Oh my gosh, you know, I'm surprised that anybody will buy a 911 used, at least the early 997s and the 996s, along with any other variety of Porsche that happen to use the same engine design. But nonetheless, you know, I've had good luck with mine. I did buy it used, but it runs well, doesn't smoke when you start it up, and believe me, I monitor it. I actually put my cell phone camera behind it every time I start it up, just to make sure that I'm not seeing anything that might be indicating we've got some problems. But having said that, we'll do a quick report once we get the analysis back, just so you can see for 60, actually with shipping, 80 bucks what you get. So anyway, look forward to presenting that one also. So again, cheers, thanks for watching, like, subscribe, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.